like a middleweight, you know what I mean? Like a sort of not an amateur boxer, but an amateur style, like jab, move, or like pick your shots and move. Like he ain't meant to fight.
The boxing world is in uproar after shocking news broke that Dillian Whyte was knocked out in a recent sparring session, just weeks before his high-stakes clash with 20-year-old phenom Moses Itauma. What should have been a standard tune-up quickly turned into a viral storm of doubt, ridicule, and genuine concern. This was
nailed him right down the middle, straight right, and knocked him down again. And that one to finish him was big.
It wasn't just a bad day at the gym. It was a brutal reminder of how far Whyte has fallen from his once feared status. The KO didn't just shake Whyte, it shook the sport. Suddenly the question isn't how he'll handle Moses. It's whether he should be stepping into the ring at all. At this stage in his career, a sparring knockout
for a round or two.
First time he gets cracked, it's gonna, I guarantee you, his head's gonna be like, oh shit.
It's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
How many rounds is it?
Isn't just alarming. It's a full-blown siren. Fans, analysts, and even fighters are wondering aloud, can Whyte still take a shot? Can he survive even a few rounds against a young, undefeated, explosive talent like Itauma? Joe Rogan didn't sugarcoat it. Known for his straight talk, Rogan warned that once Whyte gets clipped now, it's game over. That wasn't commentary, it was a grim reality check. The man once known as the body snatcher who dragged opponents into
this level, the old Dillian, it was a couple of years ago. And it's going to be interesting to see how much that Dillian Whyte has left. And is
the trenches with sheer grit, he's gone. What remains is a version of Whyte who looks uncertain, slower, and vulnerable. And just when the situation couldn't get more humiliating, Tyson Furys stepped in, with his trademark trolling. But this time, Furys' mockery carried a different tone. Less venom, more pity. That's when you know it's bad. When even your old rivals stop fearing you and start laughing, the writing's on the wall.
Once, but I'm talking about with somebody who doesn't fiddle around, somebody who actually would like to get him in the latter rounds and is capable of knocking people over. You know, he's a puncher. You've seen
Furys' phrase, the old Dillian, is starting to stick, because the current one seems like a shadow. He's no longer the man who went to war with Anthony Joshua and Derek Chisora. He's become a name from the past being wheeled out for the future to feast on. Promoter Frank Warren didn't hold back either. His words cut to the core. Warren questioned if...
I like the fight. The reason being is because Moses Itauma, we've been saying now, is that guy. He needs that test. He needs that step up. And I think Dillian Whyte is that guy. Dillian Whyte's probably found it hard now to get that big fight. He's probably said, I'll fight Moses Itauma if you give me X amount of money. And
Whyte has any business fighting someone like Moses at this point. Itauma isn't some untested hopeful. He hits hard, he finishes opponents, and he's hungry to make a statement. If Whyte's getting folded in the gym by no names, how will he survive against a 20-year-old wrecking machine? Andrew
boxing world wanting to go there, because Moses Itauma is fascinating. I spoke to Francis Warren ringside on Saturday night. You had a microphone as well. Were you allowed to put the pressure on them to speak? Because I just did.
Hart may have delivered the coldest line of all. This isn't legacy. It's a last paycheck. Whyte T didn't land a big fight. Now he's taking the role of a stepping stone. He's not driven by glory anymore. He's driven by desperation. Absolutely. Here's a sharper, tighter, and more ruthless rewrite of your 1,108-word breakdown, refined for tone, flow, and impact, while preserving every core message and making the piece feel even more cutting and urgent. If you're getting knocked out in sparring and still saying yes for the right price, that's not ambition, that's survival. Dillian Whyte isn't chasing glory anymore. He's trying to stay afloat. And Moses Itauma, he's not just a
about
promising
Moses'
heavyweight.
ride.
He's
Whyte's presence is simply there to rubber stamp a highlight reel. After the sparring knockout, the narrative is painfully obvious.
He's very, very good, Moses Itauma. So some people might say he'll get rid of Dillian Whyte like he has the others. Maybe not. Maybe Dillian's too much for him at this stage.
About Whyte's redemption. It's about Itauma's rise. Whyte T is simply the name tag to the next chapter in Moses' highlight reel. After that sparring knockout, the script is clearer than ever. Whyte's role isn't to compete, it's to collapse. Even Adam Smith, usually measured with his words, couldn't hide it. He tiptoed around it, but the message was there. Whyte T is the one in danger, not Moses, because Moses, for all his youth, is fearless, focused, and unbeaten. Whyte T, he's leaking punches in private, and confidence in public. The idea that Whyte T might be too much for Itauma, laughable. His recent record, that viral sparring KO, and the tone of his own team say otherwise. There's no mystique left, just a recognizable name with a price tag attached. And that's exactly why this fight got made. It's the ideal setup, a high-risk looking name that poses low actual risk. For Moses, it's a launch pad. For Whyte,
he's got speed, he's got power, he's tough, he's game. He ticks all the boxes so far. So let's see. Again, he's young. You know, he's not really been tested because what he's doing to these opponents. So
a cash out. But tests go both ways, and Whyte might not survive long enough to even ask a question. Because once Moses lands clean, and he will, that sparring embarrassment could easily become a public execution. Peter Fury, a man who's trained champions, didn't sugarcoat it either. He rarely hands out praise, but when he says Moses ticks all the boxes, it means something. He sees a future world champion, and then he asks the one question that cuts deeper than most headlines. Is Dillian Whyte even the right test anymore? Once Whyte was a threat. Now, he's a name on a checklist. This fight represents two men on opposite ends of their journey, one ascending with purpose, the other hanging on by memory. Whyte can talk strategy all he wants, but strategy means nothing when your reflexes are gone and your chin can't take heat. That's like polishing a car with no engine. Looks good.
A lot more punches than that, and I have a lot more punches than that. So, I'm not just focusing on one punch. I'm focusing more on strategy and getting to the strategic position to learn what we're learning. It's softball, so you can't just walk up to him and learn left hook and then the same like you do on other people. So you have to set it up and timing and stuff. So yeah, I've just been working more on that.
Goes nowhere, and Moses isn't going to wait around. He'll press from the opening bell, throw combinations with violence, and test Whyte's soul before Whyte can even settle. And we already know what happens when Whyte gets hit clean. The lights go out. This isn't 2015. This isn't the Whyte who stalked opponents, snarled at cameras, and dragged top contenders into wars. This is a shell. A fighter clinging to press conference sound bites and recycled swagger. And Moses, he sees right through it. The fans see through it. There's no bluffing your way through a fight like this, especially when the tape and the sparring room has already exposed your vulnerabilities. When pressed on the criticism and public doubt, Whyte shrugged it off. That's the problem. He's not listening. He's mistaking reality checks for hate. There's a difference between tuning out the noise and ignoring the facts. Fighters who get stopped in training and brush it off don't usually bounce back. They get bounced out. Whyte says he doesn't care.
What I believe in. I say, yeah, okay, cool, and just do whatever the fuck I want anyway. So yeah, I don't really, I try and focus on me and what I'm doing and what my kids and family is doing. I don't care about some idiots' attention land. Who
care what people think? But this isn't about opinions. It's about warnings. And fans aren't heckling. They're sounding the alarm. Simon Jordan said it best. This isn't matchmaking. This is risk management. Whyte wasn't picked because he's elite. He was picked because he looks good on paper but is beatable in the ring. He's the illusion of a threat. Jordan's breakdown was brutal, but dead on. If Team Itauma genuinely feared Whyte, this fight wouldn't exist. Jordan even compared Whyte's role now to journeymen like Marius Walk and Dempsey McKean, opponents meant to test prospects without endangering them. That says everything. Promoters expect rounds, not resistance. Whyte's presence isn't about competition. It's about visibility. He went from headlining pay-per-views to being handpicked for an up-and-comer. The sparring KO didn't ruin anything. It validated the decision to call him up. The risk is low. The reward is high. If Moses doesn't knock him out early, he'll grind him down by mid-rounds. Either way, Dillian Whyte, the once feared body snatcher, is now just the body. The whole narrative around
fight. But it'll be fascinating to see how Moses goes against Dillian. I don't think they put him in against Dillian Whyte if they think there's real jeopardy for them. I think they might get a few rounds and get asked a few more questions than possibly they've been asked by Marius Wack and Dempsey McKean.
This fight walks a tightrope, respecting Whyte's past while facing how far he's fallen. Everyone keeps using the same phrase, the old Dillian, the one who pushed AJ to the edge, who brawled with Chisora, who had an aura before the bell even rang. That guy is gone. What's left is a fighter chasing ghosts. His timing, his grit, his durability, all faded. Yes, he still has power, but what good is that when your chin can't cash the punch and your gas tank is empty by round 5? Even members of his own camp, like Ty Mitchell, aren't hyping up his form. They're just talking about how seriously he's taking it. That's code for concern. Fighters in peak form don't need seriousness. They need sharpness, and Whyte just doesn't look sharp. Let's be honest. That sparring collapse told us more than any face-off or interview ever could. Moses, on the other hand, is everything Whyte used to be. Hungry, dangerous, and climbing. This isn't a level playing field. This is one man entering his prime and another fading from his. The real
good fight, actually, especially for Moses. I think it's a very good time to fight Dillian. He's had a couple of years out the ring. But, you know, make no mistakes, Dillian Whyte is a massive puncher to head and body. I know he's taking it very serious. I'm speaking to Ty Mitchell, who's in training camp with him. And looking forward to the fight. You know, it's a big step up for Moses because he hasn't really fought anybody on Dillian's level. The old Dillian, it was a couple of years ago. And it's going to be interesting to see how much.
The question isn't whether Whyte can win. It's how long he can last once Moses starts landing. And the most damning truth came from Itauma. He didn't hold back. He said what everyone else is tiptoeing around. Dillian Whyte doesn't need a good camp. He needs to become someone he no longer is. That's the fight. Not against Moses. Against time, against reality. Against the man he used to be. But he's not that man anymore. He's slower, more hittable, more fragile. And now the kid who grew up watching him is ready to end what's left. Moses Itauma isn't just fighting Dillian Whyte. He's burying his era. And this time, the old lion won't be roaring back. He'll be lying flat, under the weight of everything he used to be. Dillian Whyte was once the guy flipping tables at press conferences, radiating menace before a punch was ever thrown. Now he's the guy getting dropped behind closed doors in sparring. Unless he can dig deep and summon that old fire, not just in flashes, but for every second of every round, he's not just losing. He's becoming another clip on Moses Itauma's highlight reel.
Almost see the old school Dillian Whyte who, you know, wasn't afraid of anyone, would put it on anyone, because Moses is still only 20. And I almost feel like if Dillian needs a path to victory, it might start from outside the ring first, and then we'll see. Because there would have been a time when Moses is growing up and he's watching Dillian.
That's how fast this sport moves. 1 minute, you're the enforcer. The next, you're the question mark. This isn't just another fight for Whyte. This is a reckoning. Once feared in the heavyweight division, he's now surrounded by doubts, sparring collapses, and a wave of young killers looking to make their name off his. Moses Itauma isn't just a prospect. He's the future. Fast, ferocious, focused. Everything Whyte once was. And everything he's now chasing to reclaim. This isn't about titles. It's about pride, relevance, legacy. Because if Whyte gets stopped here, and let's be honest, the writing's already on the wall, this isn't just a loss, it's the end. But if he can turn back time, even for one night, if he can silence the doubt, defy the age, and bring back the body snatcher of old, then maybe, just maybe, there's still a final chapter to write. This fight comes down to more than skill. It's about will. One man is chasing greatness. The other is running from the shadow of decline. So who wants it more? The hungry lion or the wounded wolf? Because war is coming, and one legacy isn't making it out alive. Are you backing the rising force Moses Itauma, or does Dillian Whyte have one last roar left before the lights go out?